So today, we're diving into the death of one of the most feared criminals on the planet, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known to the world as El Mencho. His fall was supposed to be a massive victory, right? Well, instead, it lit a match that threatened to set an entire country ablaze.
Okay, so picture this. February 22nd, 2026. After years of being the most wanted man in North America, we're talking a $15 million bounty on his head. El Mencho is finally cornered. A joint military operation takes him out. This was the moment everyone was waiting for.
But here's the thing. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the CJNG, this empire he built, it didn't fall apart. It didn't wave a white flag. It didn't even flinch. Instead, it hit back with a plan that was already in place, and the efficiency was just terrifying.
Within hours, literally hours, of El Mencho's death, his organization unleashed a protocol of absolute chaos. It was the ultimate proof that the monster he created was designed to be bigger than him.
So what does that response actually look like on the ground? You have to understand, this wasn't just a riot. This was a coordinated military-style assault on the entire nation of Mexico.
The scale of it was just staggering. The CJNG rolled out something called the narco-blockade protocol. They hijacked trucks, buses, anything with wheels, and set them on fire to create these massive flaming barricades. They shut down over 250 critical highways in 22 different states. Think about that. In Jalisco, their home turf, they carried out coordinated hits, assassinating 25 National Guard members. They paralyzed airports, even in big tourist spots like Cancun and Puerto Vallarta, forcing the U.S. Embassy to tell Americans to shelter in place. This wasn't chaos. This was a well-rehearsed contingency plan designed to bring a country to its knees.
To really get your head around how an organization could pull something like this off, you have to understand the man who built it from the ground up. So who was Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes?
Really?
His life story is like a masterclass in building a criminal enterprise. Seriously. He starts out poor in Michoacan, a kid guarding pot fields. Then he crosses into the U.S., where he learns the logistics of moving drugs internationally, heroin specifically, before getting busted and doing time in a U.S. federal prison. When he gets deported, he does something genius. He joins the local police force in Jalisco. He learns their tactics, their communications, their weaknesses from the inside. And finally, he joins the Millennial Cartel and marries into the Los Queenies family, who just happen to be financial wizards, masters of a global money laundering network. Every single step gave him a crucial piece of the puzzle.
And he used every bit of that knowledge to create something totally different. See, El Mencho didn't just want to be another player in the drug trade. He wanted to rewrite the entire playbook using brute force.
The old-school cartels like Sinaloa, they operated more like a business federation. Their model was to bribe politicians and cops to stay in the shadows. El Mencho saw that as weak. He built the CJNG like a military dictatorship, completely centralized, with him at the top. His strategy wasn't to bribe the state, it was to fight it, to intimidate it, to flat-out overpower it with shocking public displays of violence.
And he had the arsenal to make that threat real. I mean, we are talking military-grade hardware. His guys would roll out in full tactical gear, level 4 body armor, carrying 50 cal sniper rifles that can stop a truck in its tracks. They had RPGs, belt-fed machine guns, even weaponized commercial drones dropping IEDs. This is the group that, back in 2015, used an RPG to shoot down a Mexican military helicopter. This wasn't a gang anymore. It was a straight-up paramilitary army.
And that violence? That was their brand. The CJNG were absolute masters of psychological warfare. They produced these slick, high-def propaganda videos showing off their armies, their armored truck convoys, and they made sure to broadcast their most gruesome executions. For them, terror wasn't just a byproduct of their business, it was a marketing tool.
So the big question is, how did they afford all this? Well, their economic model was every bit as brutal and innovative as their military strategy. You might think it's all about drugs. And yeah, synthetics like fentanyl and meth were the cash cow. That's half their revenue right there. But they were way more diversified than that. They were into everything, extorting small businesses, stealing massive amounts of fuel from state-owned pipelines, running these complex timeshare scams on American tourists, and of course, human smuggling. They were basically bleeding the economy dry from every possible direction.
And there's a name for this. Experts call it a polycrime syndicate. It's a business model that goes way beyond just selling drugs. The real goal is to suck wealth out of every part of society, which not only makes the cartel rich, but also makes the government too weak to fight back. It's a vicious cycle.
This extreme violence and this predatory economic model eventually forced a huge move. In February 2025, the U.S. government officially designated the CJNG a foreign terrorist organization, and that's a game changer. It meant the fight was no longer just a job for the DEA. It opened the door for the CIA and the Department of Defense to get directly involved in hunting the cartel's leadership.
Which brings us right back to today. El Mencho is gone, and his entire family, his entire bloodline is either dead, in prison, or being watched 24/7. The empire he built is now staring into a massive power vacuum.
So the million-dollar question, or maybe billion-dollar question is, who takes over? You see, unlike the old mafias, there's no son, no brother, no clear heir apparent waiting in the wings to keep things stable.
Instead, what you have are these three top lieutenants all vying for power. You've got El Jardinero, the guy who controls all the super labs that cook the drugs. You've got El WR, the brutal commander of their paramilitary special forces. And then there's El Sapo, who controls the ports on the Pacific, which is how they get all the precursor chemicals. Each one of them controls a vital piece of the kingdom, but not a single one of them controls the whole thing.
And because of that, security analysts aren't predicting a smooth transition. They're not expecting a new king to be crowned. They're predicting something called violent atomization. Basically, the CJNG won't get a new leader. It will shatter like glass into a dozen smaller warring factions, with each of these lieutenants fighting for their piece of the pie.
And this leaves us with a really, really unsettling final thought. The kingpin strategy, the plan to take out the leader, well, it worked. El Mencho is dead. But in taking out the one man who held this incredibly violent empire together, did the US and Mexico accidentally unleash something far worse? A dozen smaller, even more brutal and unpredictable wars? It might just be a classic case of a tactical victory leading to a strategic catastrophe.